The teachers run the school. We're the majority of the school board. We make all the decisions. We decided that that's important when we first opened, is to be a collective, a strong collective, and that means even if you're paid as an EA or somebody who's had many teaching years of experience, that you all have an equal voice when decisions need to be made. We've always decided things through consensus, but we formalized it, and it's a process using a fist to 5 rating. And basically we sit around, there's 23 of us now as staff members, and every Friday we meet, and any decisions that need to be made, we make them on that model. And we're our own district, so we set our salaries, we set our benefits and all of those things. So when we set a salary scale, there were a few years that we didn't get any raises. We didn't adjust our salary scale at all. I mean, you made bumps and lanes, we still have that. But we didn't get any raises because we couldn't afford it in our budget. We know what the budget is, so we understand that we can't get it. So there's nobody to argue against about, well, we deserve this. And then the management side of you says, well, we can't afford it. So I think what we do is model collaboration so they can see how it's done. We model people working together. We model having a voice. And we try to teach that to them so that they don't go out feeling powerless about their future or their environment or whatever. So if they're unhappy with what they're learning, or if they're unhappy with the rules at Avalon, there's so many vehicles for them to change it. So I think that works really well, and it generates respect. So we may have some kids with really horrible living situations or life experiences, but while they're here, then we try to make sure that that's a community. And I think there's other things in place like peer mediation, so they learn to solve problems differently. Those are the Congress, and then they can change stuff. If they don't like a policy, they can change it. I really feel like I don't have a right to be unhappy here, because if I'm frustrated with some of the things that we're doing, then why don't I work to change it? So I mean, it's a job, but I also know that I can create it or work on creating it with a group of people, and I really like who we work with. So if something's not going well, then you have the power to change it. You're not locked into a system. You're definitely empowered as a teacher. So I have total control and total access to changing and working in a different way with students. That if I feel like, oh, this isn't working, then I can either I can change it immediately, go to the staff and say, this policy doesn't work, and this is why, and we can work on it through there. So we can adapt our program, and we do change it a lot. Little things will come up, and we'll be like, oh, that didn't work, and let's try something else, and we'll try something else, and we'll try to keep working at it and making sure that we're meeting all the students' needs as best we can. Well, I like working here because it's interesting, and when you want to learn something new, you have a vehicle to do that. I think now it would be difficult to go back to a more traditional setting where I would teach social studies class 3 times to one age group and then move on to another class. And the repetitiveness of that would be difficult probably to adjust to again. I need to have ownership for me to have the freedom to do what I want to do as well. I think that's what teachers would need. They need to have control so that they are able to be free to do what they need to do to work with the students. I've gotten to learn about human resources and payroll and benefits and administrative tasks and due process and compliance and all of those different things that I wouldn't have the opportunity to learn about had I just stayed in traditional teachings. I think the other thing that's really important about the partnership is that I think the teachers have all of these untapped skills. And so within any school, I bet you could go and find teachers who somebody would be interested in the budget, somebody would be interested in personnel and human resources, somebody would be interested in marketing, somebody would be interested in analyzing test data. And I think a lot of large school districts don't have those resources of what's already in the building. And relying on one person, an administrator, to do all those things that might not be the most efficient use of resources. Yep. An advisor is working primarily with the students, and the program coordinator role is that it's just more administrative tasks need to get done. And so that position used to be included in an advisor position, but about 3 years into our school, we decided to pull that position out because it was so much work managing all the paperwork and the things that needed to get done, and the marketing and the recruiting. So we pulled those pieces out and made it a separate position, but it doesn't function as a principal or a director of the school. I've been very involved in hiring and personnel committee. Actually, this past year, I pulled myself off of personnel committee, but I've been on the personnel committee for those 6 years before that. And as a program coordinator in that role, I pulled myself off of it because new staff coming in would tend to see me as a boss. And so I wanted to make sure that personnel is something separate. If I'm on the personnel committee and I helped hire them, then they go to me as if I'm their boss. So I think it's smoother if I'm not on it, but I still am involved in helping out, whenever they need something. I think in general, there's been a skepticism about cooperatives and are they effective and who really makes the decisions and can they really get the job done. And I think we've demonstrated that we can. When we first started and we were so small, of course, it seemed like it could work because we could meet often, we were connected, and we kind of all had a similar vision in mind. And I think the fear was if we expand and make it bigger, does decision making need to go into small groups? And it didn't. So we made that a priority. I think there were huge questions. One, can our students go to college? Will they be successful in college? So there was that academic question. We only had 9th and 10th graders. We didn't know. I mean, we hoped. We thought they would. We think it's an interesting, innovative program. And I think the other question was, can we sustain ourselves? What happens when this group of people who really put their heart and soul and created it and have a idea of what it should be, is that sustainable? And I think the reality of it is. So we've had people leave and we've had people come, and actually the vision and what we're doing and everything, that's solid. I mean, that is sustainable, and it can change. So I mean, it's flexible enough to address what our needs are. So I've been impressed with how sustainable it actually is, and that a cooperative can function. I guess I'm surprised. The fact that our finances are very solid, like that's one piece that's very strong. I think the fact that we exist and that we continue to solve problems and continue to make changes, I think the fact that we're sustainable, the fact that we've had big issues come up and had to deal with, and we've survived those and been stronger for it. So there are plenty of examples along the way that I think that show that our cooperative is successful and the partnership, it works to address those needs. So.